Well, we saw career highs, program records, and teams continuing to make a statement at the beginning stages of conference play. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Carly Smith here with our CAA Hoops insider, Monica Moore, breaking down the latest news in CAA women's basketball. Monica, let's first start with a team that's already turning heads. Stony Brook went 2-0 this week with wins over William and Mary and Charleston, and the Seawolves handed Charleston their first conference loss of the season in overtime on Sunday. Zeta Gonzalez, let's talk about her 37-point performance, marking the highest by a CAA player this season. You look at the new leadership under Joy McCorvey, but just the same grit showcased on the floor. Monica, what'd you witness?
If you look at these two games, the wins this week over William and Mary and Charleston, there were three things that really stood out to me in both of those two contests that I think were the big reasons that Stony Brook had the week that they had. First of all, the defensive effort was there. They really bought in defensively. They locked in, which is so important in this league.
Mhm.
And another thing that they did was they hit the glass. They really hit the glass. They had a plus 11 rebounding margin against William and Mary. They had a plus 8 rebounding margin against the College of Charleston. And that is important, especially when you get in close games. And then finally, they had a balanced offensive effort in both of those two games. Against the Tribe, they had 3 players in double digits. Against the Cougars, they had 4 players in double digits. And when you have different players carrying the offensive load at different times, it usually is a recipe for success. But Carly, you mentioned her, Zeta Gonzalez. What a week she had for Stony Brook. 37 points, a new program record in the Division I era for Stony Brook. Absolutely tremendous. You look at that number, it jumps off the page. But what doesn't immediately jump off the page is that 17 of those points were in the fourth quarter. When the game was on the line, she delivered. She hit the game tying basket with 1 second left to go to force overtime. And she wasn't just scoring. I talked about the rebounding. She had her first ever career double, 10 rebounds against the Cougars. And I love the progression that we're seeing out of Zeta Gonzalez, because when you think about last year, she was surrounded by so much offensive talent. You think about Gigi Gonzalez, Kari Clark, Victoria Keenan, Cherise Pittman. So she averaged about 8 points a game, which was great. But this year, she has absolutely doubled it, 16.2 points per game for Zeta Gonzalez. She is our CAA Player of the Week. You couldn't have picked anyone else. Hats off to her. Hats off to Stony Brook. It was a phenomenal week for the Seawolves.
Absolutely wonderful breakdown. And you're so right. Just watching Stony Brook last year, her progression, that's what college basketball is about, right? Next woman up, always the natural progression. So amazing to see for the Seawolves on Long Island. But Monica, let's move right along because 4-0, it sounds pretty nice, doesn't it? North Carolina A&T remains undefeated in league play. And here's the deal. We know this. You can never count the Aggies out. They were down in the fourth against Towson on Sunday, thanks to clutch shooting. They just grinded out the win, but this is a team that can back up their scoring with tremendous defense, which we both love. So looking back to the Delaware game on Friday, they held the Blue Hens scoreless from the field in the fourth quarter. What? That's crazy. So Monica, we look at the numbers, they're incredible, but what's your analysis on the Aggies?
Well, you were right. 4-0. It was the start they wanted to have. It was the start they needed to have, and they have delivered on it. And I think one of the most important things about that 4-0 is that 3 of those 4 games have been on the road. The last 3 wins have been on the road. It's hard to win on the road in this league. So that was a huge accomplishment for the Aggies. And you alluded to it, Carly, because I think when you want to be at the top of this league, you have to be able to win in lots of different ways. And we saw that this week out of the Aggies. And I think that is a great sign for Terrell Robinson's club. So let's talk about the Delaware game, because you focused on the piece that I'm focusing on, which is that the shots were not falling for the Aggies. They had to find another way to win. And it was the lockdown defensive effort. They buy into that. That is something something they take a lot of pride in. So it's no surprise, but it's important when your shots aren't falling because it's going to happen in women's college basketball. You have to be able to lock in defensively and still grind out the win. Jordan Dorsey was Jordan Dorsey. She always is. 16 points, 3 steals. But one of the standouts in that contest to me was Paris Locke. And I talked about Paris Locke last week. I've really been enjoying watching her progression because we talked about Zeta Gonzalez, and you're seeing something very similar with Paris Locke, where she averaged 6 points per game last year. She's already up that to double digits, averaging about 10 points per game for the Aggies on the season so far. And I think you're going to see that number go up and up for Paris Locke. And she's rebounding very well. She's doing a lot of the little things for North Carolina A&T, and I love to see that for her. But then the Towson game was completely different. It was a different type of win that the Aggies had to achieve. And Shania Clark, oh my goodness, it just feels like she steps up when she really needs to step up. And Terrell Robinson said after that game that she is one of the most clutch players that he's ever coached. And that is very high praise from Terrell Robinson. And it's so true. She knocked down the 3-pointer to give the Aggies the lead late in the game, then came up with the big defensive play for North Carolina A&T. It was a little bit of deja vu. She did something a little similar last year for the Aggies. Jordan Dorsey, again, was tremendous in that game. Again, filled up the stat sheet, 16 points, 5 rebounds, 4 steals, 3 assists. There's nothing that Jordan Dorsey doesn't do. And North Carolina A&T is absolutely rolling right now. And I love their ability to adjust, to adapt, and to do what it takes to get the W.
Yeah, I love it too. So many playmakers. When you need a clutch shot, multiple weapons to go to for sure on the Aggie squad. But okay, Monica, looking ahead, games to watch in the upcoming week, really some entertaining ones. What's on your radar?
Well, I've already alluded to it a little bit. It doesn't get easy for North Carolina A&T because the one good thing for the Aggies, they are home this week, but you have Drexel coming to town. I think that's going to be a good one. Drexel 2-1 on the season. They're coming off a tough loss to Hofstra. When you look at that Hofstra game, Drexel actually won the third and fourth quarter. They outscored Hofstra in those quarters, but they couldn't overcome the first half deficit. That's a hungry Drexel team. That's going to be a really good game. And of course, Stony Brook is coming to town too. So you want that game circled on your calendar. 2 of the teams that are riding high after last week will square off this week. So North Carolina A&T, Stony Brook, going to be a great one. Another one that I think you have to have circled on your calendar is Monmouth at Charleston. So you have 2 teams that are both coming off of losses. So these are going to be teams looking to rebound. We talked about Charleston. That's a tough overtime loss to Stony Brook. Monmouth coming off a loss to William and Mary. I think that's going to be an important game in terms of early conference standings for those 2 teams. So a lot on the line early in conference play. And then one last one that I will give you, very, very excited about the Elon game coming up later this week. Elon's a team that I've had my eyes on. They only have 1 loss, that loss to North Carolina A&T. They're going to play Hofstra this week. So I think that's going to be a fun one as well. So as always, there's a lot on the calendar for CAA women's basketball, and there's going to be a lot to talk about next week.
Awesome. Thanks, Monica, for a wonderful breakdown as always. And hey, fans, okay, visit casports.com for results, recaps, and more. Plus, follow us on Instagram at CAA Sports and CAA Basketball on X. Enjoy the week, everybody.